Welcome to today's episode of Molecules to Medicine podcast. For those of you just joining the podcast, we are AI Jewels and we specialize in helping healthcare and life science companies scale their business and revenue and explore how AI is reshaping industries and accelerating innovation. So if you'd like to learn more about how your healthcare or life science business can get to the next level, make sure you stick around. And if you're interested in a free growth consultation, just drop us the word growth in the DMs and we'll get back to you. I'm your host Hardeep, and we have a very exciting guest for you today, Raphael, the CEO from NKILT Therapeutics. Welcome, Raphael.
Welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
No problem. And where are you talking to us from today?
I am talking to you from very freezing cold New Jersey on the east coast of the United States.
Fantastic. Well, I'm in the UK, as you guessed, and it's pretty much wet and miserable here too. So Raphael, tell us a bit about your background and the journey that led you to NKILT Therapeutics, and any pivotal moments or experience that shaped your career.
Yes, with pleasure. Thank you again for having me, as I said. And I always appreciate the opportunity to highlight what we are doing in life science and how we are trying to solve critical problems to help patients down the road. You will hear me say that a lot. It is the main reason why I'm doing what I'm doing today. So I'm Raphael, CEO and co-founder of NKILT Therapeutics. I have been in the industry for now close to 29 years. I'm initially from France, it seems to be obvious based on my accent. I moved to the US 20 years ago, and I've been working in the industry for, now 3 decades. My background is I'm a scientist by training, but I never worked as a scientist. I rapidly moved to clinch an MBA, and with my MBA gave me my first job in the pharma industry as a junior brand manager, and I started a decade of marketing, from operational marketing, launching drugs to in countries, particularly when I was in France or in Europe. And then moved rapidly also to global marketing, where I had more strategic responsibilities and, of course, the global footprint in charge of oncology blockbuster drugs. After a decade of marketing, I'm a person that likes to learn new things. I always like to grow. And, I was feeling that marketing was fun, but it was becoming repetitive to me. And so I made a move in new product strategy, and I had the privilege of working in drug development, where I oversaw up to 5 different programs in oncology when I was working for Novartis Oncology at the time. It was really like my job was more or less, you can summarize this as I was the CEO of each program, and I had to work with all the different stakeholders within the organization in order to move the assets that were in the different programs from the discovery phase all the way to approval. So I had I was very fortunate to work on different programs, of which some were extremely hard and maybe not as fancy and sexy as others. But I really learned all the foundation of drug development through that process. And I had the chance of bringing 2 products on the path to approval in multiple myeloma and in non-small cell lung cancer. So after this time, I pivoted to a more strategic role. I needed to understand, and I wanted to understand what happens in the C-suite, what happened behind the scenes of a company, and really get the deep understanding of what are decision-making processes, what's happening really behind the curtain with leadership, and what are the implications of those decisions. It's not just about we need to do this, we need to build a strategy on that, we need to operate on this element, but what does it mean? How do you make those decisions, and what are the implication of it? So I was really fortunate to work and sit at the C-suite table of 2 large corporations, one after the other, one more biotech and the other one more pharma, and literally reporting to the CFO and the CEO. But by sitting at the table, even if I was not C-suite, it allowed me to really not only learn, but understand what's happening at that C-suite level. And I was in charge of strategy with strategic plan or any strategic question that I would be tasked to work on. At some point, I reached a kind of a dead end with some risk of conflict of interest, because in strategy is always a chance that you have been working on something one day and then you have to work on another thing that could be conflicting. I also wanted to start to think about a different purpose in my work, because it was getting a little far from my initial purpose to develop new drugs to patients. So I really focused on finding a new opportunity to get back to my initial idea. And I moved out of a corporate world and created my consulting company, boutique company, with a focus on early stage biotech and particularly in cell therapy and immuno-oncology. And through that journey, I crossed paths with incredible people, and particularly the one that became my co-founder of NKILT, Dr. Henry Bale, that I really enjoyed discussing with, and at some point came with an idea that I had in mind, shared it with him, and after 8 months of back and forth weekly conversation, him and I, we landed on the core technology that created NKILT. And he actually wrote the first IP, which means NKILT is a creation of the two of us, not an academic spin-off. So we are a little bit of an outlier in the field of biotech.
Oh, fantastic. So it sounds like you had a fantastic journey there, being involved with the C-suite and learning, what's happening behind the scenes, and then taking that experience and setting up your own business and with NKILT as well. That's fantastic. So tell me a bit about NKILT Therapeutics. What do you do and who do you do it for?
Yes, so NKILT is a cell therapy preclinical stage biotech. We created it in 2021. We actually started really the work in 2022, mid 2022, when we opened our lab. And as I said, it's not a spin-off of academia. So we had to really do everything since the very beginning. So we wrote that first IP, we filed a provisional, raised a little money, and started to back up our idea with data. And the focus of NKILT is to engineer immune cells to be able to bring them back to patients and have them identifying cancer cells and killing them. But we are focusing on it's very well known for people in the field. We're using an allogenic platform to be able to have really off-the-shelf cell therapy. Today, cell therapy has been very impactful for numerous patients with a technology that we call autologous CAR-T, and it has been very strong in showing even some curing outcome for patients that were refractory to all existing treatment. But unfortunately, autologous CAR-T, as good as it is, currently has essentially evidence in a handful of B malignancies disease, so some form of blood cancers. But it also, it is unfortunately not really scalable because it's a perfect personalized medicine where you take the immune cells of a patient, you take them out, you engineer them, and you bring them back in. So that's the epitome of personalized medicine, but it's clearly not scalable because every manufacturing batch is an N of one for one patient. And it has been shown to be not only very costly, but there are a lot of challenges, and the access to therapy has been unfortunately very poor, with less than 20% of patients eligible for those therapy really receiving it in the US today. So our idea is build something off the shelf because we want to make cell therapy accessible immediately for the patient. Yes, we may need to compromise on some aspects compared to a personalized medicine, and we will have some challenges, but we know that this is something that we can do. Back in the days when we started to do allogenic transplantations, everybody was saying, oh, this is never going to work. And today it's done, I would say, somewhat routinely for many blood cancers. And yes, the challenges are still there, but we have learned how to overcome them in most of the situations. So the proposal of NKILT is this off-the-shelf natural killer engineered cells. We could do it with any type of cells, but it's the most obvious choice for allogenic. And we want to make this not only efficient in tackling cancer, but we want to also make it very specifically cost-effective in manufacturing and then accessible, affordable for patients globally, which will make it profitable for the drug developer, obviously.
Fantastic. So it's very similar to CAR-T, but rather than being tailored to specifically to an individual, which is obviously very costly, it's off the shelf and can target a more generic method of that immune changing to target those cancer cells.
Yeah.
Is it any particular cancers it targets?
So the focus of NKILT is based on a target called HLA-G, which is a very interesting target, somewhat considered difficult to work with, and we believe that we have found a way to go around on this. This is actually the composition of our first patent that we filed, and that I have to admit and mention was granted last year in the US and is now on fast track globally. But we found a way to really target properly HLA-G. And HLA-G is a very fascinating molecule that is known as the pregnancy molecule. It is actually the molecule that protects the fetus from being attacked by the immune system of the mother. because the fetus is half mother, half father. So it should be under attack of the immune system of the mother. And yet it grows for 9 months in the belly of the mother without being killed by the immune system. Well, HLA-G is a big piece and big component of that. Unfortunately, cancer cells have figured that out and are using HLA-G to create a protective blanket and hide from the immune system of the patients when they are growing as a tumor. The other beauty of HLA-G is that it is expressed across almost every cancer. The expression varies, it's like every molecule that has an involvement in cancer. In some cancers, it's 20% of the cells expressed. In some other cancers, 100% of the cells are expressing HLA-G. But it makes it a formidable potential to help patients across multiple types of tumors. And so we are going after leukemia because this is where there are strongest evidence in natural killer cells killing of leukemia cells. But we are very rapidly, we are actually building a solid tumor program where we have shown in vitro proof of concept that are particularly good in numerous solid tumors such as pancreatic cancer, esophageal cancer, colorectal, bladder cancer. And there are strong rationale to develop this type of drugs in breast cancer, regardless of their hormone status, by the way, which means we don't need to compete against the existing standard of care. It could come as an add-on and complement to the current standard of care. So a lot of potential around this, but a lot of unknown and lack of evidence because, for example, natural killer cells haven't really shown yet clinical evidence in solid tumor. So we need to bring the data, prove our point, and hopefully convert into successful outcomes for the patients in the future.
Sounds like some amazing work you're doing there, and a great method there using that expression from the pregnancy hormone. And what stage is development at the moment?
Yeah, so we, as I mentioned, we're still preclinical, which is part of the biggest challenge because in life science currently, and particularly in cell therapy, a lot of investors are no longer interested in putting money in the early stage. They're more focused on late stage clinical, almost close to approval. So we are preclinical. We are currently fundraising to be able to get enough capital to bring 2 assets to IND, which is the gate to be able to start clinical trials. We believe that if we can get the funding rapidly, we will be 2 years away from the first product to start clinical trials and get that IND, followed closely 6 months after by our second product, which will be the solid tumor product that will be able to start tackling a different array of solid tumors. Our initial focus will be likely, and I have to say likely because there's still some it's going to depend on the in vivo proof of concept that we will validate later this year, hopefully. But it will likely be focused on GI tract cancers because we have a lot of strong evidence there. I mentioned pancreatic, I mentioned esophageal, colorectal. These are diseases where we want to really work, particularly in colorectal that is a very high unmet need and fast-growing disease, unfortunately. And we believe HLA-G is a key component of its immunosuppressive status. So we believe we can have an impact. So GI tract, maybe some GU. There's a big question, do we go now in breast cancer, knowing that it's highly competitive, but on the other side, it could be really significantly impactful due to the evidence we have in the literature on the importance of HLA-G. So bottom line, there's a lot to do. And part of the work that we are trying to also emphasize is that we believe that it will be better off if we find partners along the way to be able to tackle all these different options. So we are not only on the hunt for fundraising like every early stage biotech, but we are also seeking strategic partners that could be taking some of the burden with us in order to spread our wings further. But it's all about prioritizing the right tumors where we believe we can have a higher chance of success to validate the technology and then start to tackle the hard to treat ones, like, for example, pancreatic, that is going to be difficult to solve, of course.
So those seem to be your biggest challenges there, funding and finding the strategic partners to be able to take this to the next.
Yeah, funding has been a disaster in terms of opportunities for the past 4 years. We created this. You don't necessarily time things the way you or the ideal way. Immediately after we founded NKILT, the kind of bubble of cell therapy burst, and funding came. Started to shrink and walk away. The investors walked away from the or were just focusing on late stage opportunities. It has been a very, very difficult ride, and it is still far from being any better for early stage. But there are some pockets of potential investments that we can try to tackle. And there also, I'm strongly believe that the strategic partner approach is going to be a path to help us reaching our next milestones. I think I'm obviously biased, but the technology has something unique to it, has a lot of promises. We need to answer a lot of questions also, because like every innovation, it's innovating it's part of the paradox of what we do, is that most companies like to kind of replicate something that had worked because they know it works, and it's about like, how can I do it better? We took a different path, which is really creating something significantly different than what everybody else is doing, which is great from an innovative standpoint. But many times the first question that I receive from investors is, did someone replicate or did something similar to what you do that we could refer to? And I say, well, no, nobody did. That's the concept of innovation. At some point, someone's going to have to make a bet on us, and we can successfully push that forward. And I'm convinced we could do that. It's just that the environment has been particularly difficult, probably in ways that I have never experienced in my 30 years in the business. And many of my more experienced CEOs have also claimed that this is one of the worst time we have been in a long time for early stage biotech. So it's just, let's hang in there and continue to believe in what we're doing, and hopefully have some successes on fundraising so we can confirm successes on the preclinical and then clinical stage of our technology.
Indeed. Yeah, you got to keep at it. And what sort of channels have you explored at the moment to find those investors or strategic partners, and what sort of outreach have you done?
Yeah, everything and nothing, I would say. It's a little bit like you activate your network. We've been able to fundraise enough to live for 4 years, not in great conditions, I'll be honest. It was not necessarily a fun and easy journey. And like I always remind people, if I wanted to make money, I would have not become an entrepreneur in biotech. I would have stayed in big corporation. So it's really not about the money. It's about what we can pursue. But I think now it's really identifying people that have still that high interest in the cell therapy idea, but also the ones that can synergize with what we are doing. And that's where the strategic partnership becomes really of high interest. Could have a technology that will be very versatile, and it could be a good complement to a portfolio, not only because we could do and deliver successfully a treatment that could eradicate cancer in many cases, but also because we could be a very strong combination partner with a lot of rationale with existing therapies. And if we have a safe technology, which we believe we will have, considering the initial data that we have generated on safety, we can become a very good partner for many key treatments that are already in the field.
Great. And what's the profile of your ideal strategic partner? What sort of company would be ideal?
That's a good question. Some would say big pharma that can bring you all the way to the end. Yes, well, actually, the best strategic partner is the one that want to work with us. But I would say, if I had to make a selection criteria, I really want a partner that has the understanding of deploying global clinical trials, because we will need to do global clinical programs, and cell therapy is not considered cheap to roll out clinically. I think our technology will cost significantly less. I am sure it will cost significantly less. So the cost of a clinical trial compared to a current cell therapy will be significantly lower, but it's still an expensive play. Even a small molecule global clinical program, it could be over $100 million overall when you have to, particularly if you target multiple indications. So the clinical global footprint is something of importance. Obviously, synergies within our field, cancer understanding, eventually cell therapy interest, but really cancer understanding. And maybe not necessarily the biggest pharma, although I don't want to close the door to them, because some have shown a lot of versatility in the business and the ability to collaborate well with small biotech. So I have my short list. I'm not going to name it because I don't want to make anybody upset. But I think a mid-sized pharma could be also a very good approach. And I'll be very transparent and brutally honest. I don't care where they are from. As far as what they do makes sense and synergize with what we do, It could be from anywhere. It could be an American company, a European, a Japanese, a Chinese one. It's all about the synergies and how we can acquaint together to successfully deliver something that's going to help patients.
And does it matter what therapeutic area they're currently working in?
Well, it would not matter, but I think to be able to bring this to the finish line, it will be probably much better if they have some serious oncology expertise.
Fantastic. And you mentioned that there's nobody else looking to develop a product similar to this where it's off.
Well, so nobody has our technology that is patented, that's for sure, because we created it ourselves. So it's not like it's another PD-1 inhibitor or it's another CAR T targeting BCMA or targeting CD19. It's a unique technology that we call actually KIR for chimeric IL-2 receptor. So it's a CAR-like. And the main proposal that we have is that instead of using an antibody-antigen binding interaction, which is what the CAR is, we are using the receptor binding technology, which brings significant advantages, some challenges that we are addressing, but mostly advantages, particularly in the ability to target HLA-G specifically. So there are people targeting HLA-G. Most of them have been using antibodies and results have been underwhelming. We think we understand exactly why, and it's a thing that I'll be happy to further develop if people are interested in the details of the science. There are a few, like really few, probably no more than 2 or 3 well identified so far that are using CAR T to target, or CAR NK eventually, to target HLA-G. One is in the clinic, they're in phase 1, and I'm really hopeful to see their results because everybody that will target HLA-G and that will show successful outcome is going to serve the entire group of people working on it. We believe we can do better. Of course we do. If we were not believing that, we would not be doing what we're doing. But we really hope that they're going to show something in the clinic. We haven't seen data yet, but they're in the middle of their phase 1. There are a couple of other ones in Asia that we have identified that are working on HLA-G with a CAR. But we also think that their technology is going to have some challenges that we have addressed with our technology, including what is our second IP, which is about the persistence of and the activation of the cells, where we have a secret sauce that makes our cells strong serial killers and long-lasting killers, as our cells remain persistent for many weeks and continuously killing for many weeks.
Fantastic. And where do you see the biggest opportunities beyond what you're currently doing with this compound for innovation or impact in biotech right now?
I think, if we crack the nut of any solid tumor, we will be unstoppable. I think the initial results that we have seen in vitro on some very hard to treat cancer cell lines, like esophageal and pancreatic and in colorectal, if we convert that in vivo and then get to the clinic, have any of those showing a clinical benefit, that will open the gate for our technology, but for many more other technologies. I think one of the things that we have to do better as an ecosystem is to work better together. I know we are in a competitive field. I know everybody's competing for, a segment and to be able to successfully deliver something so they could make money down the road. But we also have to stop repeating the same mistakes because we don't share the information with each other. There are things that, despite the IP, we should be able to share, or we should be able to partner so we can, be better at delivering what we are delivering. You have so many examples in our industry where people alone could do well, people partnering and working together will do outstanding. And patients, they need outstanding. They don't need well. So it's our duty to be better at this. And I always say, hey, if you're working in solid tumor with cell therapy and you have interesting outcome, and you believe that what we do and what you do could be synergistic, let's sit and talk, because at the end of the day, our conversation can help thousands and thousands of patients that are desperately in need of new treatments.
Sounds fantastic and great work. And Raphael, where can people learn more about NKILT Therapeutics or get in touch with you and your team?
Yes, so we obviously have a website. It's not necessarily updated too frequently because we are light on funding, and the priority is to put money to the science. But but they can see the key basic information on our website, nkilt.com. Anybody can reach out to me. You can easily find me on LinkedIn. There is only one of me. I don't have any surrogates, so it's easy to find me. And you can also reach out to my co-founder, Dr. Henry Bale. I will state up front, though, that we're a very small company. We're currently 5 people. We went up to 7 at some point with a couple of additional consultants. And of course, once we fundraise, we'll be able to expand that team. I want to take a minute to emphasize and give a big shout out to my team and my scientific team, particularly my 2 scientists that are working in the lab, and without whom we will not be where we are. We will not have the evidence that we have shown. We have already some really nice scientific records with our in vitro AML proof of concept was presented at ASH as an oral presentation back in 2023, which is an incredible achievement showing the interest and the somewhat intriguing aspect of our data. We had multiple posters in large conferences like AACR, ASGCT, all the kind of specialized conference, SITC. And all this is because I have brilliant scientists that are doing incredible work, just 2 scientists in the lab, and yet able to pull off an incredible amount of really good quality data. But of course, we need more. This is why we need to continue to fundraise and expand our team so we can pull off and deliver the needed data to get to the clinic.
Well, that's a great shout out to the scientists. I'm sure they're going to be very appreciative of that because they probably often get forgotten.
Well, I mean, there is no business case if we don't have stellar science.
Indeed.
And the science is what they are putting together. And it's not just delivering the data. They are involved in our thinking process every time we think about the designing, even a simple in vitro study. If you don't design it properly, you don't have the outcome that you expect to have. You don't have the answer to your questions. So I never underestimate the incredible impact their feedback and their guidance has on what we are delivering as data at the end.
Well, brilliant, Raphael. Thank you very much. Very interesting. I'll keep an eye out for the business, and anybody who would like to get in touch with Raphael and his team, just reach out with the information that he gave. Okay, Raphael.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure, Adi.